Joining me now from the Fairfield district, from Smithfield in the western suburbs of Sydney, is Federal Labor frontbencher Chris Bowen. Chris, great to talk to you. You know this area intimately. You grew up there. You're a former mayor of Fairfield. You've got really stringent lockdown provisions on there. People not able to leave the area for work. How is everybody bearing up, and are the restrictions justifiable?
G'day, Chris. Well, I have a slightly different perspective to your editorial, but I'm sure we'll get to that. But look, yes, it is tough times out here, and my approach has been to give every single support to the community that I can in these tough times. We've got restrictions on work outside the Fairfield local government area. That's had a very big impact. And of course, I can tell you, a lot of people say to me, is the message getting through, Chris? You can walk down the main street of Fairfield, you won't run into anyone. It is really quiet. People have followed the instructions, followed the directions, and followed them very, very well. So in Fairfield, we're a great community, strong, vibrant, multicultural community. It is tough times here, but the community is getting through it as best we can.
Now, everybody wants to open up, whether you want to be going down that path of starting to open up now or you think it's a year away. We all know the route to that is vaccinations. And in your area, you have particularly low vaccination rates. Is this changing now? And what do you put that down to?
Well, it's very hard to get vaccinated out here at the moment, Chris. Look, vaccine hesitancy is an issue, but vaccine shortage is a much bigger issue than vaccine hesitancy. You know, there are many more people who would love to be vaccinated who simply can't get in than people who are hesitant or refusing to get a vaccine. Of course, that will become an issue when we get more vaccines. It's convincing people to get them, but at the moment, it's getting the vaccinations into arms is the much bigger challenge. I don't have to go around the community convincing people to get vaccines. I deal with people coming up to me saying, where can I get a vaccine? I've tried on the website, my doctor doesn't have any, I want to be vaccinated, but I can't get one.
Is that a supply issue for both major vaccines, or are people holding out for Pfizer?
Oh, there's no doubt many people would like Pfizer. There's no doubt about that, and I think that's a Fairfield issue. I think that's across the board issue, and I think that look, people will just have to talk to their doctors and follow the medical advice. I've made the point consistently for the last year that it would have been better if we had more vaccine deals, giving people more choices, and that way people could, feel more comfortable with the choices they would make, and we would just not have these supply issues if the government had entered into more deals more quickly. I said that when it wasn't very fashionable 12 months ago, when people thought I was a bit crazy for saying that, and Greg Hunt said I would have egg on my face when it all worked swimmingly. Well, I'm sorry to say that's not how it's turned out. We would be in a much better situation, regardless of what you think about lockdowns. And again, I have a different perspective to you, Chris, and we'd take a different conclusion. But I think we could agree on this: if we had more people vaccinated, then the lockdowns could finish more quickly and be less harsh.
We'll come back to those lockdowns in just a moment, but just picking you up on the vaccines, look, we know there are issues with Pfizer. As you say, if the government had procured more Pfizer earlier, brilliant. So that's a political point well made, and they've got to wear that. But what about the management of AstraZeneca? Obviously, it was brilliant to have a vaccine we can make in this country, unlimited supply of it. Understandably, that should be our workhorse, as it's been in the UK. Has the government and the authorities mismanaged the advice over AstraZeneca, because they've judged the threat of the vaccine instead of judging it against the threat of the virus itself, they've judged it against your chances of getting the virus, which in this country earlier this year was next to none?
Look, I'm not here to criticise ATAGI or the medical advice. I'm certainly not here to do that, and I won't do that. I simply come back to the same point, though, Chris. I'll stand by my comments. If we had more access to more different types of vaccines, we wouldn't be in this situation where if the ATAGI advice changes on one particular vaccine, it really puts a spanner in the works for the entire vaccination program population-wide, because effectively we only have two at the moment, Pfizer and AstraZeneca. I know the government's got other irons in the fire for down the track, but at the moment, as we speak in Australia, you really only have two. And, I made the point 12 months ago, we should have been having 5 or 6 deals. That was international best practice. That would have spread the risk. The government put a lot of store in the University of Queensland vaccine. That failed through no fault of the government, no fault of the researchers. But the success rate for vaccines is very, very, very low.
Yeah, we all knew some would fail. Yeah, we all knew some would fail, and
exactly.
obviously
And that's why exactly.
So look,
that's why we needed to spread the risk more, and we didn't.
Before we move on and run out of time, I want to let you have a go at my argument on lockdowns. And the point is this: I want to get your perspective. Of course, no one wants lockdowns. But my argument is locking down the whole state of South Australia on 5 cases, or Victoria this week on just over a dozen when they locked down. When we have everybody in aged care vaccinated, over 90% take up in aged care, and we know that's where 80% of the deaths occurred last year. And when we have a first jab into 3/4 of people over 70, we are infinitely better off than we were last year. Sure, we're going to be better off again when there's another 10 million jabs out there, but shouldn't we start to manage this a little bit less stringently, given we've got that encouraging protection in those older age groups?
Well, Chris, let me give you another perspective. Here in Fairfield, where we're doing it tough, if the outbreak in Bondi, right at the beginning, with the quarantine driver had been handled better and had been squashed then my community wouldn't be suffering the way that it is now. My community is suffering very badly, yes, from the lockdown, but also from COVID. I mean, we're locked down heavily for a reason, because there's a lot of COVID here. So if it had been dealt with stronger and faster when it was in Bondi, then the people I represent and live with and work with every day wouldn't be suffering as we are now. I'm not making a political point. I'm not here to attack Gladys Berejiklian, but I will put a different perspective to the one you put. People here are suffering because there was a reluctance to deal with the Bondi outbreak in the very early stages. There was a reluctance to go down what was seen as the Victorian road. And now here we are, Chris, I've got to tell you, with a lockdown here in southwest Sydney, which is harsher than anything Dan Andrews ever put on. Anything that he ever put on is harsher here because it wasn't dealt with in Bondi a few weeks ago. That's a statement of fact, not a political statement, a statement of cold, hard fact.
It's a difficult issue.
People in my community are suffering.
It's a difficult issue. I don't think it's and I don't think it's a partisan one. I'm just as critical of these state Labor premiers and Liberal premiers, but it is fascinating as to just when we can find a path out of here. And I sympathise with you and your community now, and we'll keep checking in over the next couple of weeks. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Well, thanks for your support of the community, and no sympathy for me. I'm doing my job, but the community is doing it very tough.